Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dalaran. Hope all of you are having a good one and staying safe and healthy out there. In this video, we'll be talking about the potential and the very likely possibility of the Burning Crusades expansion being the next classic release for World of Warcraft. Now, there's nothing confirmed, nothing like set in stone. They are not working on TBC as of right now, as far as we know. Maybe they could be, but there's nothing to tell us that something is being currently worked on right now. Instead, we had a survey go out that asked people about, hey, how would you prefer if TBC were to be released, hypothetically, how would you prefer for it to be released? How would it go about in dealing with the balancing of, hey, there's vanilla WoW, there's TBC. How would World of Warcraft exist with two versions of this game being up? But let me first catch you guys back up on exactly where all these came from. So Blizzard has been doing surveys for quite a bit of time. Random people get random surveys about different parts of World of Warcraft. Some of it has to do with classic World of Warcraft, and some of it had to do with Shadowlands. Before the big Shadowlands reveal for World of Warcraft, they sent out a survey asking players, what if World of Warcraft were to squish its numbers in terms of the levels? What if instead of being level 120, you started the new expansion with level 50, or a lower level than where we currently are? How would you feel about it? And then lo and behold, during BlizzCon presentation, Ian Hazzikostas came out there and introduced a bunch of features for Shadowlands. One of those features being a level revamp and their level squish, but also a bunch of different leveling concepts and the reason why they're doing it. And a lot of people thought it was a good idea. I doubt that Blizzard didn't have an idea of how they want to do leveling for Shadowlands. I'm pretty sure they had some sort of a concept, and that's why they threw the survey around. But they probably didn't have a finished product of the leveling system. They just asked people if they would like it and how they would like to change it, and then use that feedback to finalize it. But maybe they didn't have it finished completely, so if people hated the idea, they could simply and easily remove it out of the presentation. What I'm saying is, with TBC, there's probably some sort of a minor project that already started. Blizzard did say they're not against bringing back TBC and Wrath, and it's very likely that someone maybe thought, okay, well, what if we could bring back the maps and the zones of Burning Crusades, and they were able to pull it from the original TBC. Maybe they were able to implement a couple new talent changes, class changes, a couple of the endgame abilities that you would have gotten by the end, passives, just to see if things work properly. The biggest question would be of TBC and Classic though, and that's what this survey really hits on, is how would the Classic and Classic BC coexist in terms of like the classic versions of World of Warcraft? And this is where we'll get into the actual survey itself and what it asked its players. So the survey reads, thinking about the potential ways a player could start character in Classic Burning Crusade. Your choices are, first one being, continue playing on my current Classic character on my existing server as it progresses to Burning Crusade expansion, meaning the server would progress from Classic into BC, with the option to transfer to a Classic server that will never progress past level 60. This could have a couple different implications, but we'll touch on that in a second. Option number 2 is start a brand new character from level 58 on a brand new Burning Crusade server. Option 3 is start a brand new character from level 1 on a Burning Crusade server. Option number 4, continue playing on my current Classic character on my existing server that will never progress past level 60, with the option to transfer to Burning Crusade server, or none of the above. So let's talk about these options. The first one would be very similar to being able to really progress and experience a whole expansion and the progression of that expansion. Very similar to if you were to be able to go back and replay Legion, but Blizzard put out the content at a lot faster pace. Maybe every 4 to 5 to 6 months, they added a brand new raid that was already known. So you'll start in the Classic server, get through all the raids, hit Encourage, 6 months passes, and then like, okay, time to move on to BC. And then you'll be progressed with everybody on that server, but have the option, if you want to keep that Classic character as it was pristine, to be put on a different Classic server. But that means you also lose the friends that you made along the way on that server, the community you had on that server. So in a sense, it's almost like transferring to another realm and kind of just starting over if you wanted to value the whole social aspect of Classic WoW. Number 2 choice would be very similar to buying a character boost in the current version of the game. You buy a character boost to, let's say, level 110 instead of 120, and you get to play through the new expansion, I guess, in a sense. And you'll just be able to do it, I guess, for free instead of paying for it, which I guess is kind of cool. And you get to experience through the end game content of actual leveling in the new BC zones and experience most of the end game rather than having to level your character through. There is a lot new to check out, and the brand new zone could be quite cool, and you will be able to churn out far more characters. I don't know how long it took for you to level from end of vanilla, like max level, like level 60 to BC, like that time gap, but I'm pretty sure it would have taken you almost about the same as it would be from level 1 to 60, but I could be heavily wrong. Third option gives you an option to level from level 1 on a Burning Crusade server, very similar to what you do in Classic WoW now. Because TBC did affect multiple parts of the game, not just the end game, not just the new zones, but also how classes play. You added different abilities, different talents, and even added different classes for everybody to play with. Shamans and Paladins became available for both Alliance and Horde, and they got a lot of nifty changes where tank Paladins were a thing, and Shamans all got Bloodlust, so there was a lot of utility added to just about every faction. So the experience of TBC would be different even starting at level 1. Not massively, you'll still probably be running around and just heroic striking boars at the very beginning, but still it would have affected it in some way or another. Final choice is to continue playing with my current classic character and choose to go to BC if you decide, hey, I want to leave my community, I'm ready for another thing. Maybe all your friends decided that they want to play BC and you transfer with them on a whole nother server, and it's almost like a brand new journey for that one character. But that means you lose that character altogether. There's a lot of different ways that you could approach this, and the fact that Blizzard gave you so many different ideas of how would you prefer the most to play Classic in BC, like what happened to your character? Do you just start over a new one? Does Blizzard allow you to at least start at a decent high enough level? Do you have to choose to keep the character on a Classic only server, or do you have to choose to move him to a BC server if you want to keep that same character? How would that work out? I am surprised just option to copy a character to a brand new, let's say, Classic BC server isn't an option, and maybe they should include something like that. Imagine if you're someone who is, let's say, a rogue main. You've played your rogue through Classic, you've delved into dungeons, you've had good pugs, bad pugs, great moments, bad moments through a conflict and strife. You worked your character to the best in slot gear. There's a lot of memories, and that was a portion, or I guess a period of your rogues, or I guess your character's life, you know? And you kind of want to freeze frame it. You want to frame it in with the gear you had at the time, the accomplishments you had at the time, all the different items you've collected, the mounts you collected, just freeze it as it was in pristine condition. But you still want to be able to continue playing the character through other parts of the game as well. So keep it on a Classic server, but copy that character to BC so you can continue that journey, but can always go back to vanilla and re-experience the rogue as it was to be able to compare and contrast and see how the game evolved. Eventually people are going to get through all the Classic content. I mean, with how fast people get through the raids and some of the dungeons in Classic in 2 days environment 2020, I feel like eventually, yeah, you'll want to see the best next thing, and the best next thing will probably end up being a whole new expansion. BC ended up making a lot of changes in the game as well, changes that might be refreshing, like changes to a lot of the talents. Certain specs like Boomkins and Shadow Priests weren't all that great in Classic, but in Classic BC, they could all of a sudden be actually viable and good. You can gear your character in different ways, and you had arenas that were added, more dungeons, more raids. I think even heroic dungeons were added as well, and the game did see improvements. It was basically the same thing as vanilla from back in the day, just with a heap of a lot of extra stuff to do, extra content, and class changes and spec-specific changes as well. The only negatives I can think of releasing BC is how would the social environment of other games or other versions of WoW, whether it's Classic Vanilla or BFA or going to Shadowlands, how would that all be affected? Because Classic is a very social game, or at least a lot of people that play Classic say that it's all about the social community. It's all about the community, but would the community be thinned out if you were to add a whole nother expansion to kind of force people to play one or the other? Because you're either playing BC or you're either playing Classic. I mean, you could maybe multi-box to play both, but there's probably going to be one that you'll invest majority of your time into. Would the social aspect kind of be waned if you were to add another expansion for people to check out, especially if it's an expansion that they maybe played? Then people have described BC to be a better version of vanilla, so I wonder what effects it would have there. But that's essentially what I want to talk about. BC is probably going to be happening, not anytime soon, but I feel like by next BlizzCon they'll have some sort of announcement. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know if you would want to play or see Classic BC come to life, and I'll see all of you guys in another video.